What is good? Osiris here. And once again, you're in the middle. It's sad to see people who were once great struggle at the end of their career. In this case, it's Noam Chomsky struggling where we would think probably at the, closer to the end of his life. Noam Chomsky is someone who inspired me years ago. I really got into Noam Chomsky off of these file peer-to-peer sharing programs like Napster. And I just started downloading Martin Luther King Jr. This is around 1996. I downloaded a bunch of different people from Marcus Garvey to Martin Luther King Jr. to Malcolm X. And Noam Chomsky was one of the philosophers that resonated with me, who taught me what the word plutocracy was. And I did a video a while back when he became a part of the lockdown left, how it disappointed me. It was tough to see him like this. Now I'm good. I've reconciled that. I have no problem saying that his brain is shriveled up like a raisin, and that he's an embarrassment to himself and his career. Doesn't change how I thought about him back then. Of course, he's talking about the most dangerous moment in the world, in the history of the world, and somehow Donald Trump's name comes out his mouth.
We're approaching the most dangerous point in human history. The first article I wrote, at least that I can remember, was in fifth grade. I was 10 years old. I can date it very easily because of the time and the topic. It was an article about the Fall of Barcelona. It was an article for the elementary school newspaper. I was the editor, probably the only reader, maybe my mother. The article I hardly remember. It was about the fall of Austria, fall of Czechoslovakia, fall of Toledo, now the fall of Barcelona. Looks like the grim cloud of fascism is spreading over the whole world, inexorable. Well, that was February 1939. Haven't changed my opinion since. It's just gotten worse. The doomsday clock of the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists under Trump, they abandoned minutes, moved to seconds, 100 seconds to midnight. That's where it is now, because the threats are accumulating. We're approaching the most dangerous point in human history. Nothing like it before. We are now facing the prospect of destruction of organized human life on Earth from environmental destruction, and not in the remote future. We are approaching irreversible turning turning points which will not be cannot be dealt with any longer. It doesn't mean everybody's going to die, but it's going to mean moving to a future in which the lucky ones will be those who die more quickly.
There's Noam Chomsky. I want to just play the whole thing, then respond to that. When he brought up the fall of Barcelona, and then Donald Trump's name came up, that's what got me. If Donald Trump wasn't brought up in this clip or in this interview here that he did, I wouldn't be amped to do a video on it. I would still disagree with him. But it's very, very telling that in this moment that he considers one of the most dangerous in the history of the world, that Donald Trump's name comes up. That Donald Trump, when you look back at the history of revolutions and great military and political minds, Donald Trump's name isn't going to be brought up in that group. I know he will be important as someone who represents this populist rising in America. Noam Chomsky just said, in my opinion, he's implying that we're in the middle of a civil war. And I think he's talking about America and the world. So he's talking about, in the world context, he's talking about globalists versus nationalists. So he's saying he's probably going to put Putin in the nationalist category. In the globalist category goes Biden, who Noam Chomsky said to vote for, because you can't vote for Trump. Trump is a nationalist. This term has been turned into some type of negative meaning. All it means is when Russia invades Ukraine and there's conflict in Europe, I think, how does that affect America first? So I'm a nationalist. That doesn't mean I'm a racist or anything else, but these terms have these connotations. So he talked about the fall of Barcelona. And I'm like, is he really comparing this to the Spanish Civil War? So I just looked at Wikipedia here. And in the Spanish Civil War, that's what he's talking about when he says the fall of Barcelona in 1939. And who caused the fall of Barcelona? This nationalist faction. Barcelona fell. This nationalist army came through, and they're the ones that actually put some people in internment camps. Noam Chomsky is comparing Donald Trump in that clip to nationalists who have done really bad things in our history, in the history of the world. So he brought up climate change and Donald Trump in that clip as justification as this dangerous time. He's connecting Putin to Donald Trump in that clip. I didn't hear the whole interview. I just know from that clip what he is inferring to. They really hate MAGA. When I say they, I mean the globalists, and it sounds like Noam Chomsky has become a globalist. Like we're at the part of the chapter where Noam Chomsky is a globalist or pro-globalism. It's easy to see why these globalists, these corporatists hate MAGA. MAGA is the populist right, and it is the only political force going against the military-industrial complex right now. And when I say the only political force, the only force that has some type of political sway in D.C., talking about America. There are people on the populist left who are against war as well, but they don't have any representation, barely any. You might say Ilhan Omar or some of the squad, maybe they kind of get a little unqueasy when we talk about war in Ukraine, but they don't step up and say, I'm not for it, I'm not funding it. They're not stepping up like that, like MAGA people are. They're going out on a limb. That's why they hate MAGA. General Milley said in February that Ukraine would fall in 72 hours. Now he casually says, the war will last at least a year.
Commitment. What I'd like to ask perhaps General Milley is, what is the time frame you foresee, given that kind of understanding of the way Russia thinks and acts? Could it be something as long as a decade or even longer that we're involved in this type of conflict?
That's hard to tell. It's a bit early still, even though we're a month plus into the war. There is much of the ground war left in Ukraine. But I do think this is a very protracted conflict. And I think it's at least measured in years. I don't know about decade, but at least years for sure. This is a very extended conflict that Russia has initiated. And I think that NATO, the United States, Ukraine, and all of the allies and partners that are supporting Ukraine are going to be involved in this for quite some time.
He's a member of obviously the military-industrial complex. There's a lot of people who get paid off of that. Just ended pretty much the Afghanistan stuff. Who's going to get paid? Where's our next long-term conflict? If you don't use these weapons, then you won't buy as many weapons. They have to get destroyed, used, blown up, new ammunition needed. So now it's funneling through Ukraine. They want it to last for years. Years means money, more bombs, more we need more tanks, we need more planes, more anti-air missiles. If we didn't help out Ukraine, this would be over by now. So they're extending this war out. That's why they hate MAGA. And with this, I'm really coming harder on the populist left, the real populist left, even coming really hard on them, because I think they are the missing link to what's happening, to people taking over. Right now, the populist left is irrelevant. The Jimmy Dore and all those names that I throw out there. They're irrelevant because they're distracted by race and supporting fake populists like AOC. Now, I know Jimmy doesn't support AOC, but he's a part of the populist left, and Jimmy Dore has no representation. There's no one in D.C. against Jimmy Dore's ideas. So that's why I'm saying he's politically irrelevant. Great. I love the channel. Jimmy Dore is great. That's not a diss on Jimmy Dore. So my point is, you all are not posing any threat to the military or cabal. That's why they're going after MAGA. They're going to call you guys right wing. They call Jimmy Dore right wing. They call Glenn Greenwald white. As funny as it sounds, Aaron Mate, the reporter, as funny as it sounds to call Glenn Greenwald right wing, that's what's happening. Kim Iverson recently said, hey, I'm voting Republican straight down the ballot. And I will challenge this. I'm going to end with this. Kim, don't just say Republican straight down the ballot. You're a I think I would consider Kim, she can describe herself. I would consider her populist left. And when you say you're going to vote Republican straight down the ballot, not all those Republicans are populist right. So if I could talk to Kim, I would say, Kim, instead of saying that you're going to vote Republican all the way down the ballot, why wouldn't you say, I like some of what we're seeing from the populist right? Because I know she's not for the corporate Republicans either. And I want to talk about that. And coming on over, because Noam Chomsky feels comfortable to go after Donald Trump because the only people who are going to defend Donald Trump are MAGA, basically. But what if the populist left just came out and said, wait a second, until we have representation on our side, we might not agree with everything, but we're going to rock with MAGA. Kind of like my stance is, I'm not anti. I'm going to support it because they're the only anti-war faction.
Haven't changed my opinion since. It's just gotten worse. The doomsday clock of the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists, under Trump, they abandoned minutes, moved to seconds.
So Noam Chomsky, you sound like an ass clown, an ass hat, when you compare the only faction in America that is openly and clearly do a poll on MAGA on do they support this war and military spending. I guarantee you it's not high with the MAGA group. So why are you comparing them to nationalists, the nationalist army back in the Spanish Civil War that took over? They're anti-war. They're not looking for war and conflict anywhere. And yes, there is a civil war going on in America, but it's not about globalists here. It's about freedom and the Constitution and the founding idea of the country. Where are you at with that? No? Let me know what you think.